Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating paper from 2026 by an independent researcher named Mauricio Rosari. It's called The Manifesto of Relational Ontology Framework. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful and maybe a bit like heavy academic reading, but trust me, it is absolutely wild. It's this incredible journey trying to figure out what's really going on under the hood of existence. It basically challenges every fundamental assumption we have about the universe we live in.
So I want you to just pause for a second. Seriously, think about this. What are you actually made of? Like, what fundamentally builds your body, the screen you're looking at right now, or even the empty space around you? Because, since we were kids, we've been taught that reality is built out of tiny blocks. We picture these microscopic, hard little spheres stacking up like Lego bricks to build the whole universe. But what if that entire idea, the very concept of physical stuff, is just completely wrong?
Well, Rosari drops this massive claim right in his manifesto. He says you, the reader, are a recursive configuration of the same 8 conditions that generate hydrogen atoms, dark energy, and the thoughts you are thinking right now. Just, wow. Think about the sheer scale of that for a second. He's saying you aren't just a random pile of dead particles. You're a living, breathing configuration of the exact same underlying conditions that literally birth the stars and generate your own thoughts. It's a completely dizzying, totally beautiful way to look at our place in the cosmos.
Section 1. The Illusion of Solid Matter. Rethinking Physical Reality. Okay, so we're looking at a pretty massive contrast here. The standard view is our comfortable, everyday assumption. Reality is full of solid matter, creating distinct, separate objects floating in empty space. But then we have the Relational Ontology Framework, or ROF view. And in this view, solid matter is literally an illusion. It doesn't actually exist as independent stuff. Instead, reality is entirely defined by phase dynamics. To wrap your head around that, imagine overlapping ripples in a pond. The ripples aren't made of hard stuff themselves, right? They're just movement, interaction. In the ROF framework, the universe isn't a box of isolated things. It's this continuous, flowing web of interactions.
Section 2. Relational Quantum Mechanics, Building on Rovelli. Rosari actually lays out a very clear 3-step logical progression to basically tear down our old worldview. Step 1, he builds on relational quantum mechanics, specifically the widely accepted work of physicist Carlo Rovelli. Rovelli proposed that quantum properties don't exist in a vacuum, they only exist relative to other things. Step 2, Rosari takes that logic all the way and completely dissolves the very concept of solid matter, because if everything is just relative interaction, the solid stuff just vanishes. And finally, step 3, he replaces that resulting empty void with a single primordial relational field. So he's using hard quantum science as the springboard to completely redefine existence from the ground up.
Now, it's absolutely crucial to point out that the relational ontology framework isn't just a neat philosophical metaphor or just one interpretation among many. Rosari proposes this as the actual literal structure of reality. And he argues this structure is the direct logical consequence of non-associative algebra. Simply put, non-associative algebra is a type of math where the sequence and grouping of relationships literally changes the final outcome. Kind of like in life, right? How things connect and in what order fundamentally changes what gets created. Section 3. The Octonian Algebra, the Mathematics of Existence. So, meet the octonions, represented by the letter O. In this framework, octonions are the only non-associative normed division algebra. I know, that sounds incredibly dense, but basically you can think of a normed division algebra as a mathematical system that allows for continuous, unbroken fluid transformations without ever losing its structural integrity. It's an architecture that can infinitely fold and change while staying completely whole. This incredibly unique math is the bedrock of the entire theory. It's the mathematical grounding of existence itself. It functions almost like the ultimate source code of reality, ensuring the universe can be infinitely complex but still remain one single unbroken system.
And you know what? It all anchors down to the number 8. Octonions operate on exactly 8 fundamental conditions. This wildly complex, fluid mathematical bedrock ultimately relies on just 8 conditions that recursively fold, interact, and configure to construct literally everything we experience in the universe. It brings this profound sense of simplicity to the overwhelming chaos of the cosmos. It boils the infinite variety of reality down to the continuous interaction of these 8 basic mathematical states. And just consider what these 8 conditions actually generate. They create hydrogen atoms, the physical building blocks of galaxies. They create dark energy, the mysterious force expanding the cosmos. And they create human thoughts.
I mean, stop and think about how bizarre and beautiful that is. The exact same mathematical condition dictating the freezing vacuum of deep space is the exact same condition shaping human grief, or joy, or logic. There is no hard dividing line between the physics of a galaxy and the subjective, conscious experience you're having listening to me right now. It completely bridges the impossibly massive, cosmic scale with the deeply intimate space of your own mind.
Section 4. Primordial Relational Field, the Single Source. The primordial relational field, or PRF, is where this entire theory has been heading. This is a single, non-associative field whose phase dynamics completely replace solid matter as the fundamental substance of reality. To picture this, imagine an ocean where there are no individual drops of water, right? Just continuous, shifting waves. That single ocean is the primordial relational field. Dynamic relationships and shifting phases are the true underlying nature of the universe. There are no isolated, lonely particles bumping into each other in the dark anymore. There is only the continuous, undulating expression of this one unbroken field. Let this concept truly sink in for a second. Reality is not things, but relationships. That is the monumental core takeaway here. Existence is entirely about how things interact with one another, not what they are in isolation. Literally, nothing exists independently. A thing only becomes a thing because of how it relates to everything else around it. To be, fundamentally, is to relate. It's a complete 180 from the idea of a universe filled with solitary objects. It moves us into a universe of pure connection. Section 5. The End of Separation, What This Demands of Us. Now, Rizzari insists this isn't just some passive thought experiment or just a cool piece of abstract math. He actually writes about what this framework demands of us. Realizing that the universe works as a single relational field isn't just data you memorize for a test. It calls for a fundamental, sweeping shift in our human perspective. It essentially asks us to look at our lives and the whole world we inhabit through a totally new lens. It demands the dissolution of boundaries. If there's no solid matter and there is only one singular, primordial relational field, then the separation between you, me, the room you're sitting in, and the farthest star is an illusion. You aren't a separate entity just standing inside a universe. You are an active, relational expression of it. When you look at another person, you aren't looking across an empty void at an isolated object. You're looking at another fold, another wave, in the exact same field that you're a part of. We are physically and mathematically intertwined. So if solid matter is an illusion, and we are all truly part of a single relational field driven by the same 8 mathematical conditions, what does a reality without separation actually mean for you? How does that change the way you interact with the world, your loved ones, or even yourself tomorrow morning? It's a perspective that kind of changes everything, doesn't it? Something really profound to chew on today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.